Hey everyone, welcome to our Design Alliance channel. This is Tom. We're really excited to have you here. Here on Design Alliance, we truly believe in taking care of our people. And the way that we do this is we are also going to talk about leadership. We're going to develop ourselves and hopefully our community on leadership topics. And one of the super great things about what we do is that by us taking care of our people, people are going to help us take care of our organization. So today, what I have, or who I have today with us, is Claire Dobson. Claire Dobson is an amazing leader. He currently leads a department of approximately 140 people. I've had the privilege to work with him for 5 years in a very fast, dynamic environment. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire. Claire.
Hey man, thanks for having me on. So, what's the awesome topic today? Always
All
love
right,
your
yeah.
pop
So
quizzes.
So, in line with taking care of our people, I know that you've been in the leadership game for a long time, right? You've been doing it for a bit. And I've also had the privilege of seeing your leadership style, the way you approach things evolve and improve over the years. You started off really good to begin with, which is awesome. So, the question for you, aligned with taking care of people, is so when taking care of your people, what do you do differently now versus 5 years ago?
What do I do different now than 5 years ago? Wow,
Yeah.
tough question. So it's a hard question because my growth track has been like on an exponential increase in the last 5 years, as you know, doing it with me. But I'd say it starts with perspective and motivations, right? Or reasons, the why. So 5 years ago, my focus was very much on results, results of the team, results for the organization. So I was looking to put the best team together and get the best results for me and the team. It wasn't just about me. However, it was to better the organization. And those all sounded very good and true and right to me. Over time, the leadership I started utilizing, the methods I started utilizing were less about me and less about we, and more about the specific individual, which is something we don't talk about as much. So, as I began to lead a small dynamic team in a high stress environment and take it through a number of trials and seasons of growth and replacement and loss and struggle, I realized that the culture that I stewarded, the culture that I created, the environment that they worked in every day, had effects well beyond just the results of the team. The steward or the environment that I was responsible for as the leader, the culture of the workplace affected their marriages. It affected how they parented. It affected how they interacted with their neighbors, on top of the results at work. So once I identified that and I realized how great the impact of a leader was, I started focusing on more on the individual. Now, the team dynamics are still there. They're still very important. Results are still very important. But I needed more for the people. And so the specific thing that I would say changed from 5 years until now is now I am 100 times more likely to stop everything I'm doing and have a conversation. When I ask somebody in the hallway, "How are you doing?" I look for an answer. And that wasn't always the case. For example, I had a very senior individual, done 26 years in this job, about to retire, and she's having some trouble retiring. And she came into my office this week, and eyes were bloodshot, stress written all over her face. I thought she might break out in tears, and she was very angry, very frustrated. And she brought her problem to me. In this case, I knew that the individual had a solution, that she was working a plan, and that she was going to make it happen. There had been some hiccups in her plan and some less than desirable results, but I knew that she had a plan together and that she wasn't bringing me her problem for me to solve it. And so I started listening to what she was saying and the way she was saying, and it turns out that she was really beating herself up. She was frustrated, but she was also embarrassed. And I realized that this person who has done this job for longer than even I have needed somebody to offer some grace. And I got the opportunity to remind her to give herself some grace and that she had done what she could, and that although the results were less than desirable, that there was a way forward. And she came in my office almost in tears and in anger and left laughing and thanking me for my time. Moments like that are more important to the team's success and the organization's success than we will ever be able to quantify. And I missed that for a long time. I wasn't willing to take a break and do the intangibles and listen and talk. And so 5 years later, I'll tell you, my number one thing is that I will listen for that, hey, how are you doing? I'll listen for that answer, and I will approach and talk to people about it, even if, because it's not if I'm busy, I'm always busy. It's making the time.
There's a lot of things I like there. Yeah, she's about to retire. Like, she's right there. And like, I could see where it'd be like really easy for someone to be like, well, you're retiring soon, so I guess I can put a little bit of time here, but you're about to head out. Why am I going to put my energy into you? Like I could very easily see that. And so one of the things I know that you and I have talked about recently is that, like, I personally believe that a very healthy outlook is acknowledging the fact that people live lives outside of their workplace. And I personally believe that, like, even though our workplace is really important, our lives are more important. And ultimately, yes, the success of our organization brings in money, which keeps them going. And there's a really beautiful circle going on there that has to be acknowledged. What you brought up reminded me of something several years ago. I had a all-star. I relied on this person so heavily. And it was awesome seeing this person develop, because they started off as like the underdog of our group. But this person was such a hard worker, such a go-getter, such a great attitude. And it became more and more that I can rely on them for more and more challenging tasks. And there was even like times where I was just like, you know what, I'm at my bandwidth, and I know that if I give this thing to this person, that they're just going to take care of it. And so I started really leaning on them. And then one day I hear them come back and they're talking, and they didn't realize that I was close to them. They started talking about how they're really frustrated, at work, and that they were having a hard time keeping that frustration at work. And so this person, he ended up going home. He had a wife and a child, got into a massive argument over, as it turns out, it wasn't what it was that was important. It was just that they were emotionally spent at work, and they didn't have the capacity to like manage anything else. And so they just snapped, right? And I knew that, like, in that moment, I was like, I am a big piece of this, because I have been relying on this person so much, and I did not pick up on this. And I didn't want that person to be damaging parts of their lives irreparably based upon me not managing the culture environment that they worked in. So, like, because of this, luckily nothing serious happened, and their marriage is just fine. But I was able to afford this person some time away. They had like an anniversary coming up. They were able to like take care of that. There was a couple other major events. I was able to get them, the time and the ability to go invest in those things. And I think that that's like so important and on point of just allowing people to manage other parts of their lives. And we just don't acknowledge the fact that that environment that we steward impacts the rest of their lives. I mean, you're at work for like some of us, it's like 1/3 of the day. Yeah, in a commute, man, my commute here is like an hour and a half every day. So now you're at 9.5 hours a day out of 24. You can't tell me that you're compartmentalizing all those things, right? They're bleeding across. So super, super, important that we recognize that. Now, I do have a follow-on question for you, because like, what was another success that you can think of? Like, why, like, if you can think of just like a success that you've had, like maybe a realization kind of like I had, where like you're like, this is the just in time, caught it right here, but I got it because I knew this person. Like, if you could help elaborate.
So are you saying an example of where I paid attention to somebody and caught something just in time?
Yes.
Yeah, first one is it's a little bit more sad, but I'm walking through the passageway and the guys are working, and I ask this guy who does not work for me. I say, "Hey, how's it going?" And he said all right, like he always did, but his facial reaction was different. And I said, "All right, stop what you're doing, come with me. Like let's go chat, right?" And we went to a private space, and within seconds, uh, dude was in tears. Now, this specific one, I have to connect to our military background, right? We were on deployment, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on back home while on deployment. And it turns out, guy's wife was, leaving him, and he was struggling with that. I had a stepchild he loved very much, and just a lot of emotional ties, like anyone would have to their spouse. And he was, I mean, he was not in a good spot, and you couldn't really tell. He was already very quiet, and it was just something that keyed me in. And so it was one of those times where me connecting him with him then allowed him, when he really went through it, and he really went through his divorce, and he came back home and he was alone and he was struggling even harder. He reached out. He reached out when it needed to happen, because of a conversation we had had 4 months, 6 months earlier.
That's like, man, I those moments are like the ones that matter. Sometimes, because I was actually talking with someone that I had previously worked with, and I got to reminisce about something where someone who didn't directly work for me, their goddaughter died in a car accident, and this person is just torn up, obviously, right? And again, tying to our military background, but there's that point where you know someone well enough that, like, at that moment they're at work, they're crying, they got their tears, like there's nothing they can do, and you're like, this person needs a hug right now. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't know that person well enough. Like, like being able to provide the right emotional support, you have to know the person well enough to be able to provide it. And that goes right back to being able to take care of your people requires you to know your people, right? And I don't know if he'll ever remember when he went through all that and we got him on leave. I don't know if he'll remember the fact that I did hug him, but the crazy thing is I really remember that. And it's weird because in a way, it reminds me and helps me set my own example of how to conduct myself. And so that's truly important to me. All right. Yeah, then we're off to a really good start here. All right. I think that you also came in with some So some questions today. So I want to hear this. I want to hear this.
Absolutely. You know that I am not jumping on a call with you and answering questions under the gun without bringing my own. So, Tom, I've seen you lead teams and inspire men who uh, I frankly thought might be a little bit more difficult to lead than the average bear. What are the consequences of not caring? We're talking about caring about people here. What are the consequences for your teams, individuals, and organizations when we don't lead with compassion and caring, genuine caring of our people?
This is a really good question. Okay, so there's a lot of things that just like fired off in my mind. All right. I think the best example right now is actually on some thought what we've seen this last year with the Great Recession. Right? There was a point between like April of last year and August last year that 1/8 of our workforce quit their jobs.
You're talking about the Great
Last year,
Resignation?
2021, April 2021 to August 2021, 1/8 of our workforce quit their jobs. Like I think that like on a very large scale, a very large portion of that could be attributed to this. Okay, so let me dive in a little bit further onto like, okay, well, that's like just some statistics and you're connecting things. If you do not meet people's needs, and so I'm talking like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and so we're talking security, we're talking emotional, financial, physical, right? If you're not meeting those needs, that fuse for people to leave your organization gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And you have to remember, here's like the other side of things. We have teachers. The fact that we even have teachers now is mind-blowing because they don't get paid very much at all, but they love their job. They're very passionate. There is a turnover, but there are people who stay there for a very long time, which shows you that it isn't always about the pay. And it isn't always about the benefits. Okay. So I'm trying to say is that there is a natural resistance to quit your job. Right? People don't like change. But every single time you neglect something, that fuse gets shorter and shorter. But people will hang around for the craziest things for a long period of time if they have relationships established around it. And I personally believe taking care of your people, the first step is having a relationship. Right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be we're best buds, so on and so forth. But there is a relationship. There is knowing what's going on in people's lives. There is knowing that, hey, like as it turns out, my wife's like our anniversary's coming up, right? And the big events that are coming up. I feel like we should go out of our way to understand the lives that other people live, right? If I was going to start like square one, how would you even like go about it? I would say start with relationships. So to answer your question, what does it look like? I would say that it looks like people leaving your organization. I would say it looks like really high turnover rates. I would say it looks like bad customer service because they don't believe in what you do, right? I would say it looks like help wanted signs being like just perpetually posted in your windows. Right? Like that's what I think like the impact is. You're just not going to keep people. And honestly, like, where would you want to work? Would you want to work? You have equivalent places. One place paying 48K, the other one paying 48K. But one place, they're going to invest in you. They're going to take care of you. They're going to acknowledge that you're a human being, right? And the other place, 9 to 5, get out of there. The typical that we're used to seeing. So that's what I think. That's what I think it looks like.
That's good. I love that analogy, that visual of the fuse to leave gets shorter and shorter. the barrier to leave the company gets smaller and smaller when you don't meet those needs, right? And I love the reference there. So, like I said, I've seen you do some amazing work with some small, dynamic, fast-paced, and very stressful teams, right? In stressful environments. Um, what are some of the pro tips you have for the community that allowed you to show them that you cared? Right? How did you implement that? What are the best ways to take care of our teams?
That is really good. Okay. Well, very clearly, I'm going to say get out there, get to know your people. You cannot do your job effectively without knowing your people. You just can't. But I think there's too many people who know that their supervisors, their bosses, so on and so forth, are buried behind an Excel sheet in an office that's over there, and they might see them beginning of the day, end of the day, right? It's okay to like step out and walk slowly and just, hey, how's it going? What's going on? You know? And at first it might be kind of cringeworthy because everybody's gonna be like looking at you like, what are you doing out here? Like, you got a box, go back there. Like, like, let me do my thing. But the more frequently you do it, the more people open up, right? You can't expect to open, like, you can't get like people that give you like their deepest, things about them on the first go round. It takes time and consistency. So, but I think that really committing to learning about your people is the first one. Okay. The second one is learning that you, and it's not just learning because people know this, but it's committing to building people to a greater version of their current selves. I think that that's huge. And I personally don't think that you should ever be a boss or of a group of people that you could not train those people. And so the very lowest hanging fruit of that is that you can teach them all aspects of the job. And that's just technical, right? And so then you go to the next level and you're like, okay, well, what happens after that? You're like, well, I will teach them how to make decisions by allowing them to make decisions in their environment. Because I think that a very big part of taking care of people is allowing people to take care of themselves by giving them autonomy. Because I think autonomy is huge because it creates buy-in. And honestly, you might think you might have the best answer, but you don't. Just get over it. Go let your people think about it. It impacts their lives more than it probably impacts yours. They'll have better solutions. Trust me on that, right? And getting over that idea. So that's the second one. And the third one, I think, is the consistency of expectations. I think that, oh man, our good friend Ben Frieders, he really hits it on the head with this one because it's so true. It's like unstated expectations lead to future resentments. Right? Like it really hits it on the head there, and it's so true. Right. And so if you want to empower people, like let's say you give them a job, you want to empower them to do it. You can't just like say, well, just have fun. You're like, hey, when you're done with this, I want it to look like this. Meet these things. And chances are they're going to make it meet those things and better, but you got to give them a little bit of framework to work in. Right. So I would start there. Those are my first three.
I think Ben's quote is actually good marriage advice. We could just take that and
really is.
Take it to another podcast. Yeah.
like when I heard about that, I directly related it to like marriage relationships, and then I was like, wait a minute, that actually works in other places too.
That's good. So I'm hearing the three here, right? The big three pro tips we got. The number two or one was get out there and get to know them. Two is empower them to make decisions.
Yeah, and it's train them to the point that they can make good decisions, but allow them to do it.
Right. And then three is setting clear expectations up front and communicating them well. That's right. I think right there, that's some masterful leadership. I think you hit it on the head. Awesome, man.
This has been good. This has been so good. This has been fun. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun this conversation, and you know, oh man, like I know that you like really feel strongly about like taking care of people, and I'll tell you like in both directions. I feel very strongly when like I'm like, yeah, you know, celebrating. Sometimes I feel really not so great when I see not great things, but always consistently have we greatly felt that a call of leadership is to take care of the people, right? That's part of our charge, you know. And so one of the things I want to encourage everybody else who's been staying, you know, in tune with us here is that, hey, if you really believe in this too, keep with us. Like every single time we're going to talk about something, it's going to be on this level, right? So this is your place if you believe in what we believe in. And you know what? We hope to see you next time.